you did that for 7 years, didn't you?
Yes.
Toilets, bartending while setting up. So you really did choose the path of most resistance.
Yes.
But I love what you said about positive quitting, because I'd never had like a language for that before. But I've quit like really great jobs before, which from the outside I think always looks very strange. But like you say, just from that feeling of there's nothing wrong with this job, it's just not inciting the right feelings in me. And when I read your book, I realized that's what I had been doing. And I was struck when I read Everything is Figureoutable that some of it feels a little bit like practicing CBT, like observing and rerouting your thoughts. And you write that you can permanently change your neural pathways with enough repetition and dedication. I wondered if you could give us a few examples of how taking a cognitive behavioral approach can help someone sort their shit out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this brain, this thing that we have in our skull, it is the most powerful computer on the planet. This thing controls everything that we perceive, everything that we feel, like how we're going to navigate through our entire life. And it's malleable. It's plastic. Neuroscience has taught us that. If anyone's ever learned a different language, right? You weren't born knowing that language. You have to repeat certain phrases over and over again. And then literally your brain gets rewired and reshaped and grows new capabilities. Well, it's not just languages that we can learn or computer skills. It's a completely new way of seeing our lives and of being in our lives. So I think taking the time to just slow down and ask ourselves and investigate our thoughts, our feelings, to kind of parse through events, our meaning that we make, and whether or not that serves us. I just think from a pragmatic standpoint, it makes sense, not to mention it works. I don't have a degree in psychology. I'm not an expert in all of these different fields of therapy. For me, I'm a very just pragmatic person. I'm interested in, well, what helps create results? And in my own life and in working with people now for over 2 decades, I've seen that the way that you talk to yourself matters. One of the things we share in the book is the most powerful words in the universe are the words that you say to yourself. It costs nothing to believe in yourself, but if you don't, it will cost you everything. And beliefs are a choice, and all choices can be changed. So that's why I'm such a big advocate of people just experimenting with installing this belief that everything is figureoutable. Pandora, I haven't met one person, in all honesty, that this little phrase, if they take it on for themselves, and I always say, try it before you deny it, that it has not helped them in some way be more resilient or see things from a new perspective. Like I get notes all the time from people like, oh my goodness, I had a flat tire and I didn't even know I could fix it, but I heard you in my head and then I got it going. To someone else who, through the pandemic, I've had a lot of business owners tell me this, the pandemic has wiped out a lot of people's livelihoods and many people's businesses. And some of those folks, we had folks in a particular program I offer called B School. It was live during that time when the pandemic hit. And some of them pivoted using this phrase and said, okay, I cannot control what's happening, but I can control this, my creativity, how I'm going to approach things, how I'm going to see things. And some of them are thriving now. So again, it's not me. It's them using this phrase and this possibility in their own lives to tap into a deeper well of creativity and potential.
Something you write about as being a kind of obstacle to being able to figure stuff out is how overburdened we've made ourselves with checking emails and watching loads of TV shows on streaming platforms and, running various accounts on social media. And you write, embrace the fact that if you are powerful enough to create an overcommitted and overstretched life, you're powerful enough to uncreate it. How many clients do you see with this particular problem? As I think it feels like a really common one. I hear a lot this sense of, I have no time to do this, or I can't keep up with this. And I definitely feel like sometimes it's kind of impossible to keep your head above water in modern life.
Well, this is a really great gift. I feel like we have such an interesting contrast point. When I wrote this, it was pre-2020. And I think that we might have been reaching the height of feeling overstretched and overcommitted. And I can just speak to my own experience. I tend to be a pretty conscious person about how I'm spending my time. And I just remember so many conversations in my own head going like, oh my gosh, I need 48 hours in a day. And just having so many expectations, putting so much pressure on me to do more and to be more places and to get more done. It was really intense. And then when the pandemic hit, at least in my own experience, I was like, whoa, the whole world shifted. And all of a sudden, so many things that I used to do to keep myself busy, so many things that I thought like had to get done, don't have to get done anymore. Life became a lot simpler and very, very hard. So much suffering and so much tragedy and so much pain that we've all experienced. But at the same time, there's been some gifts and some lessons and some eye-opening possibilities. And I think part of that has to do with your question, with, you know, this story we've told ourselves for so long about how we can't because we don't have the time. One of the things I learned years ago that I found really fascinating and useful for my own growth and my own life was this notion that there's these two phrases, can't versus won't, that can really trip us up as human beings, especially as it relates to the limitations we put on ourselves about what we believe we can't do. So this is a really fun little way to release yourself from excuses. Because again, I think all of us have excuses from time to time. I certainly do. I've given myself, oh, I can't do that. I don't have the time, or I can't do that. I don't have the money. But when I look a little deeper and I'm willing to get super honest with myself, it's not really can't, it's won't. And so we talk about this in the book. This idea that 99% of the time, not 100, but 99% of the time, when we human beings say we can't, what we really mean is we won't. And what does won't mean? Won't means we're not willing to. We don't want to. It's not that important to us. It's not that big of a priority. We're not willing to move other things in our life or neglect other things in our life to put this new thing up and make it happen. And when people start to really ponder that and get honest with themselves, you'll see how true it is. I started noticing for me, anything that I truly wanted, if it was important enough, I would make the time. And if not, I'd make an excuse. And so I would invite everyone listening right now that if you ever hear yourself in your own mind saying like, oh my goodness, I would love to do that, but I just can't because I don't have the time. Or, oh my goodness, I would love to do that, but I can't because I don't have the money. Just to be curious, compassionately curious with yourself and say, is it really can't? Or maybe it's won't. Here's a concrete example from my own life. For years, I would say, oh, I really want to learn how to speak Italian. You know, I really want to, but I can't because I'm so busy. I'm working on this book and I'm going on tour and there's, you know, all the things that we have, taking care of the house, taking care of the family, taking care of the bills, taking care of the team. And then when I really stood back and I got honest with myself, I was like, that's a lie. That is a flat out lie. How do I know? Because when I'm done with doing all of those things that I've done all day, taking care of things, taking care of my family, feeding, shopping, cleaning, team, business, all this stuff, and I have a few extra minutes, am I really opening up the language app on my iPhone and getting in a couple of new phrases of Italian? Know what I'm doing? I was watching Game of Thrones. I was watching a TV show. But seriously, right? So it wasn't can't, it was won't. And again, 99% of the time, not 100, 99% of the time, when we human beings say we can't, what we really mean is we won't. And I think that the value in telling ourselves the truth is that you can let yourself off the hook and stop beating yourself up so much for all of these things that you should be doing, but you can't get to. It's like, no, you don't want to get to it right now. Maybe at another point in life, it will be your top priority and you will make time for it. But right now, let yourself off the hook and just do things fully that you really need to or want to do, because that's what's important. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I think that's a liberating way to look at it. Instead of, I don't have time to do it, it's I'm choosing to spend the small amount of disposable time I have watching Game of Thrones. And I think about that, about exercise. Like, it's not that I don't have time to do it. It's just that I don't mean like walking. Obviously, everyone's walking right now. But I mean, you know, I'd always think, oh, I'm going to do an online yoga class. And then I'd realize that actually what I really wanted to do after putting my children to bed was read. And so it wasn't that I couldn't do it. It's that I had to be truthful about the fact that I wasn't making time for it.
Yes,
and probably should, but
guilty about that. You don't need to feel guilty about that at all. And if yoga was that important to you, Pandora, I guarantee you would make the time. If it was really what your heart desired and not some exterior should, and this is what would make the perfect Pandora, she should be doing more yoga, let that go. It's like we've all learned, 2020 has taught us life is too short. We've got to embrace joyfully what we want to do right now and not beat ourselves up so much, because it really, we're not going to be on the planet long. And whatever we're choosing to do with our time, we need to own it and love it and not beat ourselves up for the 17 million things that we're not doing.
I think my back would like it if I did it, but you're right. My heart is saying no. The main response, or one of the biggest responses I imagine to this idea that you can uncreate certain areas of your life is, but what will other people think?
Yes.
What about if my decision hurts so-and-so? How do you balance your obligations as a friend or a wife or a daughter when you're uncreating those things that do not best serve you? How would you advise someone watching and nibbling their nails thinking, okay, I know I need to make these changes to my professional or personal life, but I know it's really going to piss off this person?
Okay, so first of all, great question. Second, you don't know. All of us have this great ability to tell ourselves stories and be predictive about other people's behavior. They may not give a crap, to be quite honest. And so much of life, so much of how we create results isn't so much in what you say, but how you say it. So this challenges you to be a little more skillful in your communication abilities. And this is all contextual. So it depends on what relationship we're talking about. Concrete example from my own life. When I was working on this book, I remember Josh, my partner, we've been together for, oh my gosh, it's going on 18 years in like a month. So I knew that making this book the best it could be, and then also going on tour, it was going to radically change our home life for a set amount of time. You know, the mornings wouldn't be the same. I wasn't going to be around for months at a time. And that was going to have an impact on our day-to-day life, on all kinds of things. And I remember just sitting down with Josh, and I knew he wasn't necessarily going to be happy about it. We have a great life. But I said, you know, hey, this is what it's going to take for me over these next few months to do this thing that is so important to my soul. And so here's what it's going to look like. And I want to talk about it because I'm probably not going to be cooking dinner as much. Like things are going to shift a bit, and I really need your support. It's really important to me. So I want to hear your concerns before we dive into this, because once I go, I'm in. And I've done that at different parts of my life where I just open up a conversation to let someone know how important they are to me, how important the relationship itself is as an entity to me, to speak into the shift that's coming, to have a dialogue about it, but then also to stand really firm in like, my job as a human being isn't to get other people to like me. My job is to like me. Now, I have to work hard to be a good partner and to be a good boss and to be a good friend. And I have to take responsibility for that end of it. But at a certain point in time, when I've done all I can do, if someone else is going to be upset because it's my time to grow, that's not my responsibility. And so I think that there's like these two levels of just being an adult and being mature and having conversations. Also not making up a story that someone's going to lose their mind. Like I remember thinking like, oh, Josh is probably going to be a little cranky. He's going to think like, oh, your career's more important than I am. And you know what? I was totally wrong. I was completely wrong about the stories I was making up. So I think that we have to give people in our lives, especially those closest to us, a little more credit, not expect the worst, be actually open to hearing their point of view, which may not be as horrible as we think it is, and then go for it. Be brave and be courageous, because to that point, you know, if we're creative enough to manifest an overstretched schedule or not have boundaries or create your life in such a way where it feels tenuous, well, then you're powerful enough to uncreate that. Is it going to be comfortable? Probably not. Is it going to go perfectly? No. Is it going to be easy? Probably not either. But is it worth it? Hell yes.
That discomfort, though, can be enough to not do it, I think, sometimes. what is your advice when it's just, okay, that sounds great, and I know that's the brave thing to do, but I can't face that right now. I can't take that on. I don't want to risk pissing anyone off, even if they don't, you know, I just don't want to take that risk. It's just better just to stay like this.
Sure. Yeah. So you really have two choices, right? So you have the choice. You're like, okay, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to have that conversation. Well, then you need to fall in love with your life exactly as it is and stop complaining about it. Which is a valid choice. That's an equally as valid choice. If there's anything in you that legitimately is like, now is not the right time, do you know what I mean, to have X, Y, or Z conversation, or now is not the right time as a mature adult human to shift everything in my life. It does not make sense. That's a valid just conclusion to draw from. But for your sanity, then embrace what you have. Anytime you catch yourself complaining about it or victimizing yourself with your life, cut it out. It's not doing you any good. It's going to make you stressed, miserable. Talking about stress, especially in the midst of a pandemic, all that does is lower your immune response. It literally could kill you. So don't do it.
That's the kick up the backside that I was talking about. I was really